I'm very excited to welcome you all to the first of our 4-part series, Being Your Best Self. Just quickly, a few housekeeping items before we get started. We're running this session through Zoom meetings to allow for breakout rooms. So please ensure that your audio is on mute, but remember to turn your audio back on for the interactive part of the workshop. And we'll also be asking a couple of people to share with us their vision and thoughts post that breakout session. There'll also be an opportunity to ask questions, so please log your questions in the chat box and we'll endeavour to address these during or at the end of the presentation. So on the back of the huge success of the webinar last year, How to Use Exercise as a Recovery Strategy, I am thrilled that the next step is again partnering with Vanessa Porter, MD and People and Culture Strategist at All of You, and Chris Wilson, Stress Scientist, who together have built ChangeFit. We all know that 2020 was a taxing year on everyone, but as I speak to HR and HSE professionals, business leaders, family and friends, it becomes evident that the impacts of 2020 still linger. I'm sure that many of you have read or heard me refer to this as the 2020 hangover. ChangeFit was created by Vanessa and Chris to build mental, physical and emotional capability to be our best selves in an ever-changing world. And I'm excited to see so many online today ready to take action and make personal change. Today, Vanessa and Chris will take us through the first module, Being Intentional and Unlocking Your Wellbeing Power. Welcome, Vanessa and Chris.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to join you all today. And I just wanted to give you a bit of a background about why we decided to build ChangeFit. This actually started just over a year ago when I was asked by the Sydney Opera House to help them to get ready for the concert hall closure. And so I built a program which was really focused on the mental and the emotional sides of dealing with change. And that was great. And then what happened is Chris and I got talking and I said to him, you know, like I really believe in the power of the mind and the emotion in terms of connecting to change. But actually there's a big piece missing, and that's actually the embodiment of it, the physical side of things. So Chris said, right, well, I can help you out there. And so we set about building ChangeFit. And luckily for us, we actually have provided it in all different types of mediums. So it's completely online, or it can be completely face-to-face, or a mixture, in fact. So when the Opera House rang me at the beginning of COVID, they said, Vanessa, we really wanted you to come back in and work with our leaders because of COVID, because this is a change that we've never come across again. And so what we said was, actually, we've just finished videoing the whole program online. So we've delivered it to 52 of the leaders at the Opera House. So we're pretty proud of what we've produced, and hope that as we go through the series of 4 modules with you over the course of the year, you'll actually get to be a part of every single one of them. Now, one of the modules that we did for the leaders was how to translate the vision into reality. What I found, particularly with my HR groups, I run some networking groups every 6 weeks, is that a lot of them actually feel like we've been looking after a whole lot of people last year, and actually it's hard for us to get motivated this year and really make a difference. So we wanted to make this first module all about you, and really about what you can do personally in terms of setting your intent so you'll have a great year ahead. So this is for you, and then you'll see as we go through, we'll then move into focus, being optimistic and resilient. So let's get cracking. The first thing I wanted you to do is, if you open your workbooks to page 2, you'll see a slide there. And what we've got there is, we call it our model, or our genius model there. And we'd love you to give yourself a score on what it takes to be intentional, what you think you are in terms of being focused, optimistic, and resilient, because today is all about being intentional. So just score yourself, and also if you wouldn't mind putting why you've scored yourself that. And I'd love to hear from a couple of you in a few moments. So let's just focus in on the being intentional. Love to hear from a couple of you, if you want to come off mute, about what was your rating and why you scored yourself there. That'll really help us to target the next hour together.
Who will be the brave person? Who will take the step?
It all starts with action.
He has just asked a question. Would like to know what people think being intentional means. What does that refer to?
Yeah, great question. So from my perspective, I actually do a little meditation each morning, and I think about my intention for the day. So what do I want to create? What do I want to feel? What do I want to experience during that day? So it's just really clarity about what you're hoping to do, whether that be in the day, the week, the month, the year, 5 years. Hopefully that answered your question.
It's relevant
Well,
as
if
well.
no one else is going to share, Chris, I'll share.
Yeah, please do, Lisa. Yeah,
share some of my insights. I gave myself a 7. Reasons for that, I think my optimism and my resilience is quite high, but like many, finding the focus when things get busy can be the challenge. So I'd say that's the thing that sets me back sometimes.
It's a great point, isn't it? Because when we talk about intention, and then we talk about how our days become reactive, and it takes away our focus from being intentional for our own well-being and ourselves. So it's a really good point, Lisa.
I'm happy to share. It's Belinda Blackburn here. I sort of went the opposite from Lisa. So actually, I think I'm about a 6 or a 7 on average as well, but it's my intentional and focus probably that's down a bit. Whereas actually I'm pretty optimistic and resilient, but I'm just going with the flow because I can't quite get my head around what's next.
Yeah, well, as you can see by our model, flow is really an important piece, and actually not getting too hung up on everything, knowing what's going to emerge, because we can only control what's in front of us and within our own selves. Thank you. All right, Chris.
Okay. So we've asked you to just have a reflection piece around, where you are right now and how you're feeling. But what we want to start to create this image of for yourselves is we're going to start to create a higher version of ourselves. Now, I'm not claiming to be Buddha, but this little piece in front of you here, we call this the law of mind. And what we can do is we can get in my space with overwhelm and stress, our thought processes can really start to accelerate, and that has a physiological response on the body. So when we're talking about intentional, we also start to talk about that control piece. And so when we start to look at ourselves and the better version or the best version of ourselves, we can then start to bring in things like what you think you become. At no point, by the way, am I saying that I really want to become Superman and therefore I can think it. That's not our point here. We do know the power of the mind, though. And so when we think, we can become, but only when we take time to think. And then, of course, we know what you feel, you attract. This is a positivity and a negativity piece. If I start to generate positive emotion and positive feelings, I then start to attract that to myself and also create that around me. And then finally, what I imagine, what you imagine you can create. Now, children are beautiful things because they allow their imagination to create the world around them. And they don't have the constructs and restrictions that we as adults often put around ourselves. We often talk ourselves out of it or believe we can't because well, our fear-based decision making puts a barrier up. So what we want to do today on this journey with you is we want you to go through and consider the law of mind. We want you to consider that we want you to get attached to the emotional feelings, how you're going to feel, what you're going to look like, how you're going to act, and how this person is a better version of yourself. So with our intentional piece, we often ask, what is your personal vision? Is it clear? Is it up on a wall somewhere? Is it in your mind somewhere? When I say the words, what is your personal vision? Does it spring up and appear in front of you with absolute clarity, crystal clear clarity? Because if it does, then you're in an amazing place. If it doesn't, that's okay. That is part of our journey today. We're going to walk you through this. You know, each step that we take you through today, we ask that you engage with each piece because it's a journey that we're taking you through. So what do we want? We want to understand, what is your personal vision? Now, remember, we're talking about your well-being today. That is the context of this conversation. And often when it comes to what do you want from the personal vision, we often externalize. I want my children to be this, or I want my partner to be that. And I ask you in the nicest possible way today, can you just be a little bit selfish? Just be a little bit about you today. You've taken this hour with Vanessa and I and the Next Step team. Let's just concentrate on you for a bit. So I want you to consider what you believe is achievable. And once we start to get this image and we can, create this image in our brain about where we want to go, we can often find that it can steer us in a certain direction. And that's why, absolutely 100%, we have to understand where we're going. Where is our journey? What is the path? What we often find then is that our focus, which can often be pulled in every direction, especially now, once we are clear about where we're going to want to go and we've got the emotional response behind that, we draw ourselves back in, we pull ourselves back. No, that's not the way I want to go. I want to be in this direction. The feeling piece is about connecting to your inner self. Now, it's deep and beautiful, but for most of us, what that means is we're going so fast and accelerating all the time. It's not until we're so far down the rabbit hole, we stop and reflect and go, why am I here? Well, how did I even get here? I don't understand what's happened. So once we connect to the deep level of the values and belief systems in our heart and our brain, and we've got a very clear vision of where we want to go, it is a force. It is an absolute force, and it's beautiful to see it. And also it helps us understand who we are as an individual. This is what I believe in, this is where I want to go, and this is why. And we're trying to connect that mental, physical, and emotional piece behind who are you and where are you going, especially when it comes to your own well-being. Now, what we're going to ask you to do next, I think, Vanessa, do you want to walk them through this one? Yes, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, what we're going to do is just give you a couple of moments to fill this out for yourself. Can you really articulate that vision? Can you really put down on paper what those feelings are and what actions you'll be taking? Can you describe that vision or that image that you have for yourself? And then start to peel that back a bit and go, well, what is it about that that really excites you? What is that gap between where you want to go and where you are right now? What are some of the resources that you might need to be able to help you achieve that and to tap into? And what do you think some of the obstacles might be that get in your way? Then we're going to break you into pairs, and there's going to be quite a lot of pairs. There'll probably be about 30 pairs that we'll do there. If you have any problems getting into your pairs, or you're not sure what needs to be done, even though you've got it on workbook page 3, then please just pop it in the chat and Chris and I will come into the rooms. Otherwise, we'll just give you 10 minutes to really open up and share what that vision is. The reason why we're doing this, even though it's deeply personal and you only have to share what you feel comfortable with, is that we know that once we start to talk about it, then it becomes more and more a reality. And then we start to expand that vision within ourselves. So we're going to give you a total of 10. Starting to see everybody's morphing back in to the room. Beautiful. It still freaks me out how we seem to just zoom, get sucked in and out of rooms. It's wonderful. Okay, I think
I ended up in a conference room. I had 5, 6 people sitting around a table.
Well, there you go. I think you had the next group, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so love to just hear high level. What were a couple of the visions that you started to articulate? Just come off mute and love to hear a couple of them.
Hi Vanessa, it's Jo here. I don't mind sharing. Hi Chris. I was very much talking about how my own physical fitness is absolutely a vision that I've got for 2021. I was sharing that kind of under the crazy lockdown that we had last year in Victoria, in a weird way it was easier to fit it into my life, but now I've returned back to the workplace and things are returning to a degree of normality. It's suddenly shifted well and truly down the priority list where it needs to move definitely back up the priority list.
Thanks, Jo. Anyone else? I'm sure there's a number of us that can relate to that one. Yeah, thank you. I saw somebody with their hand up there.
Can I share the conversation in my room?
Yeah,
because
sure,
I think it's significant to a lot of us. And there was 4 or 5 people in one room. It's really difficult for people to open and express. But there was always genuine concerns about the ever-changing landscape that people live and work in, and hard to create that clear vision of where they want to go when there's constant quicksand under the feet. And it was a really, even though they may not realize, it was a strong conversation within the room, because there needs to be a reflection piece, and there needs to be a conversation between how much is your environment sabotaging your vision. And anyway, I just wanted to share that with the group. I'm sure a lot of us were thinking the same.
Yeah, certainly the pairs that I popped into, there was, oh, actually, we don't have a vision. We're just trying to cope with the day-to-day, the week-to-week right now. So actually to raise our self-awareness and then do something about it, we haven't really turned our attention to that yet. So hopefully as we go for, you know, another 35 minutes, you'll start to get that granularity. And look, one thing that I just wanted to share with you is I had a very similar goal coming in here, this vision about myself being completely nourished. And that was really nourished from a body, mind, and, you know, a real emotional point of view as well. Some of you might not know, at the back end of last year in October, I literally had emergency surgery. It was life or death, and I had 5 minutes to get to the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital here in Sydney and get operated on for 3 things. And that was actually on the day we were supposed to be running this webinar, and I left Chris solo doing that. But what I found is that coming into January, I felt a bit broken, to be honest. I'd put on 9 kilos. I put 9 centimeters on around my waist, 10 centimeters around my bottom. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to somebody that would exercise at least 12 to 15,000 steps a day. I was really, really good at my food, and I was really good at making time for mindful activities, and that went out the door. And so I had this vision of being nourished, but that wasn't enough. What I found is I needed to connect to why, or the higher purpose for why this was so important for us. So I'm just going to share this with you, and this is in page 4 of your workbook, and I want you now to do this. Superficially, when you first think, well, why I want to do it, the first thing that enters your brain will come up, and that's fine. The only thing I'd caution you here is that we know we have about 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. That's a heck of a lot. And we know that 90% of them are the thoughts that we had the day before, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before. So if we just answer this question off the cuff, it's definitely what we've thought of before. And it's not really peeling back the layers and getting into why. And if you don't connect to the real root cause or the why you want to change, this will be a short-lived exercise, and it won't actually be embedded and sustained into you. So I'll just share with you, when I did this for myself, how I went from wanting to be nourished into a much deeper level. So the first one was I wanted to be nourished from a body, mind, and emotional point of view. The second one was I want to be mentally relaxed and physically energized. You can see it's getting a little bit deeper. Third one, I want to reduce my medication. I've got an underactive thyroid, and when I know that I am at my best self, I actually don't need to take 100 mcgs of thyroxine every day. That's pretty important to me, because I don't believe in medication in a traditional sense, if you can manage it by diet. Number 4, I want to limit the impact of aging. I'm 51. I'd like to kind of look like I'm probably late 40s than 51 right now, to be honest. And I personally don't want to put Botox or those things into me. I just want to literally do it through diet. And then the 5th one really surprised me. The 5th one was I want to feel secure in myself. Whoa. Okay, that surprised me, because I've always been a really confident person. But what I noticed after the surgery, because they had to put a lot of gas in my tummy and move organs around and cut them out and stuff, that actually I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, and it actually impacted my self-confidence. So I'd just like you just to take a couple of minutes and just self-reflect and go through those 5 whys in your workbook and see if this vision is really where you want to put your effort, your energy, your attention into. Because if you don't really connect at that deeper level, it's probably not the right vision for you right now. It's not going to really make a difference to you. Yeah, because it is hard work. And you need to remember that when it's pouring down with rain and you're still doing your 12,000 steps a day. Or when actually you've got back-to-backs and you've got a plan for dinner that night, whatever it might be for you. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes on that one. All right. So if we just go to the next page now, start thinking about reflecting on, okay, you've got a vision now. How's that going to guide you? Not only mentally, emotionally, but also in terms of what you're going to do. Yeah. So I want you to jot down some initial thoughts you've got about what you want to create, what you want to experience, what you want to feel. And this one's the one that I think we don't do enough as HR practitioners. We're thinking about everybody else and their development, but often We're not thinking about our own self-development, but what can we do to honour ourselves even more and use the gifts and the talents that we've got to show up and be the best we possibly can be each and every day. So just spend a moment just jotting down a few ideas there as we start to get more granular. All right, Chris.
As you're working through, I know I've still got this, I've got the questions in front of them, that's correct. Yeah, okay. So as you're working through each one, if you can hear my dulcet tone in the background, there's a really strong piece here that when the vision is clear, the actions become easy. And so when we're talking about, we're using language like clarity and vision, and it might miss a piece for some of you, that's okay. This whole reflection is all about taking time for you and reflecting on who you are and who you want to be. What we do know is that when we talk about clarity of vision, we talk about all that list on the left-hand side. I don't have to read it out to you. We know that we can write these down and create things for them, and we want to really own them and feel them. However, we are a breed or an animal that loves to come up with innovation and ideas, but the courage, the courage to be able to take a step and follow on your thoughts with action is absolutely the biggest stopping point we all face. I know who I want to be. I just don't think I'm brave enough to get there. So, okay. So what we want to do now is we are asking you over the last 25 minutes to think about your vision. What does it feel like? What will you look like? How will you sound? Where are you going? And now we want to decide, how are you going to get there? How are you going to deliver on your promise to yourself? I'm going to jump that slide, Vanessa. Whoa. Can we go back to that monstrous slide of all the different colours on it?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Okay, we're talking about clarity, and we're talking about a vision, then we're talking about action. And what we do know is that when we come up with an idea about who we want to be, we have to create feelings around that. Now, I'm a father, a beautiful father of a 7-year-old tearaway, and often I have to keep her entertained in the car because her focus is always, are we there yet? God, I'm bored. Can we play, I don't know, #sisters and sing along? So what I want to do here, I want you to look at this image. And what I'd like you to do, I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and I'd like you to count how many sections you can find in the time I allocate, which is 10 seconds. Now, I would like you to count how many red sections you can see in 10 seconds and go. So it's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. No cheating. So what happens there is when we put this competitive edge and we put this focus and target on, what I saw some of you do is you lean into the screen. It's really interesting. Even Joe's eyes went, wrong. Okay, competition, you say. So now, if I was to ask you, how many blue sections did you see? And of course, if you were playing the game, then you would say, well, I know they're there, I just don't know how many there are. And it's the same thing for all of us. If you are focused on one thing, it's almost not impossible because your peripherals can see it, but it's very difficult to see the other thing that you should be looking for. Here's an example. If I'm looking for the negatives that are occurring right now, it's almost impossible for me to see the positives. I can't draw them out because I'm fixed on the negative. And if I see it and I reinforce it in the brain, it's almost a stimulation of the brain going, see, I told you so. You are correct. Well done. So what we want to be able to do, some of the conversations that I had earlier this morning, when we start to talk about vision and intention, people want to tell me why it won't work for them. And so this is the journey we want to take you on. You want to be able to identify where you want to go, who you want to be, how you're going to get there, and then commit with clarity. The reason why we ask you to do this is you have a part of your brain called the reticular activating system. I brought my daughter into the car story because when we play a game, to keep my daughter entertained, Isla, we play red car, which means as you're driving around, we just want to count how many red cars. A very simple game to keep them focused and engaged while we move. And this part of their brain and your brain is called the RAS. And if we are aligned with what we want to find and what we need to see, your brain will start to target it. I want you to think about now how that affects us on our day-to-day. I want to see it, but I get distracted. I want to see it, but something shiny happens. I become reactive rather than what I should be focused on. And it's a steering mechanism where we can contextualize our world to make sure we're going forward and we're going in the right direction. Once we see progress in ourselves, a beautiful chemical crescendo goes off in our brain. It's amazing. But we have to be able to commit to it and understand what it is that we're working towards. And that's a challenge for you today.
So we're going to just spend a couple of moments just sharing with you how you can write goals. A lot of people find it really hard. They've heard about the old SMART way of writing goals, and we know that that's still really hard because that's really a checking mechanism, but we've got to come up with the words to begin with. So this is one that I actually use quite a lot, which is using this simple formula, which is VQTQ. And this is how it plays out. So I'm going to share with you what my goal was. So the V stands for verb. And as we all know, a verb is a doing word. So in my particular instance, it was reduce. This could be reduce, increase, action, create, develop, implement, whole use of those. Then the quantity is the measurement piece there. So in my particular example about nourishment, it was actually to reduce my weight, my body fat by 6 kilograms. So I actually do get my body scanned. So I look at in my cell health that the cell health is right. So an element of that is fat and how much of it is lean fat versus hydration, etc. So for me, it was specifically 6 kilos of body fat. When did I want to do it? Well, I was giving myself 9 weeks to do it, and it was by the 3rd of March, 2021. What we know about the quantity piece is it might be dollars, it might be percentages, it might be kilograms, it could be pallet loads, it could be a whole range of things. That's up to you. Time, we always know that, but normally it's some sort of milestone. That could be a little personal project that you're working on that you want to see those significant changes there. And then what I often find is people forget the last one, the quality piece. But that's so important because it really helps us to get that tension between the quantity piece. If I would have lost 6 kilos, but I would have done that by not eating properly, starving myself, that wouldn't have been good. So for me, I've got these body boost guidelines that I use. So that relates to what kind of food I eat, when I eat it, within what sort of window, how much exercise I do, how many mindful activities I do a day, etc. So setting your aim in this little formula makes it much easier to be able to do. So in my example, it's reduced my weight by 6 kilos of body fat by the 3rd of March while sticking to my body boost guidelines. So now I want you to think about, as you work through this book, and I'm sure you'll need to revisit this after our session, that's what we want you to do for yourselves as well. What I would say, like the 5 whys that we did earlier, you need to connect on all 3 levels. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you've you've got the vision, you've now got the higher purpose for why you should bother doing it. You've now got your goal, which might be a 3-month goal, it could be a year goal, it could be a 5-year goal. So then we've got to come up with a plan to get there. Then we've got to connect to the passion. And then what are the action steps to get you there? So let me give you a couple of examples here. What we often find is it's really hard to remember every single little step in the action plan. Yeah. So if we have a visual way of doing it, or for those of us who prefer just a little slogan or catchphrase, that's really useful. Yeah. And this will help us to reconnect with that goal throughout the day. So a visual, for example, this is a visual that I had made up of clarity. Yeah. If you think about Nike, that's the tick, just do it. Yeah. That kind of thing there. Metaphors, slogans, that's one for my book there. The mantra might remember why you're doing it. I'm doing this actually, so I've got the confidence to be my best self. Or I might constantly, when I'm talking to myself, which I do a heck of a lot through the day, I might just be saying, I am strong, I am confident, I am positive. Because we know when the imposter syndrome kicks in, instead of saying I am, we say, am I? And you start to question yourself. So just by changing around those words from am I to I am, the wonderful thing about our brain that we learned from neuroscience is if we tell ourselves enough, and remember we're having 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, if we replace some of those, we can trick our brain to actually believing that that's true. And then we start to act as if it was true, and we become what we want to become. So let's take this a little step further. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. So we start off large, and we've come up with this whole, what do you want to be? It's almost like, what do you want to be when you're older question. What we've basically done is we've started to trickle it down and narrow it down this funnel to where we go, okay, so you've an idea about where you want to go. Now let's look at how that's going to impact you daily. What small rituals can we start to include within our day that helps us move towards our goal? Now, I know because working with our clients, and I have this conversation many times, is that we start to look at time as it's something I don't have. I don't have enough time. I don't have time for myself. So when we start to talk about daily rituals, we're not saying add another 3 to 4 hours into your current time frame. It could be small increments. It could be getting up 10 minutes earlier. It could be sipping more water. It could be something small that allows you to move towards your vision. Thanks, Joe, for the prompt. Water drinking, great. Sorry, I've just got you on my screen. Sorry, I'm picking on you today. Here's something that I want to lay down in front of you, is that it doesn't matter how small you think it is. It could be an extra glass of water. It really doesn't matter, because what we do know is that as you start to reinforce, I'm drinking this water because it's working towards my vision. I'm actually trying to be a better person, or I'm improving my well-being. Your brain will go, correct. Thank you very much. And what we do is we start to create momentum. I actually like that. So what happens if I drink 2? I'm going to do 1,000 steps today. And then next week, I'm going to do 1,500. And before you know it, you're doing 6,000 steps. You go, I feel amazing. This is great. If I was to sit here today, I'm standing here today and go, you need to do 15,000 steps a day and add it into your day. You're going to go, I don't even know how that's not going to work, Chris. I'm really sorry. So when it comes to your daily rituals, be realistic. Make sure you can control it. We talked about environmental sabotage. I always blame my daughter. I really shouldn't. But I was going to say, I've got the best intentions in the world, but she wants to take my time and my focus away from me. And so just think about how you can control that and how you can reduce the impact to make sure you are working on yourself. And be realistic. Vanessa and I always talk about the flexibility of thinking, and having that mobility in your thoughts is, okay, I planned this, but it didn't quite work out. That's okay. But because what ends up happening, we get frustrated if we don't get to that never-ending to-do list. So we are trying to get you to shift forward, to make change, take small steps, but be realistic. What we also don't want to do is cause extra stress. That is not our intention with you today. It is to put you on a beautiful journey of creating momentum, focus, working towards intention. So in your workbook, we've laid it out as simply as we could possibly find. There's your days. Lay it out in front of you. Start to commit to small change. And there's no judgment here. Some of you, well, I had this conversation in the room, some of you are doing okay. I feel pretty good, Chris. I'm in a good place. Perfect. What small changes can we make? Other people are, I need to make change and it needs to happen right now. Okay, take small steps. Where do you want to go? So this ritual plan is for you. And it's a visual representation of your intention and your daily commitment to yourself. So I implore you, feel every day and enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun. Okay, we've taken you through the journey. You've got the workbook to work out your vision and your steps and where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And in this small wellbeing workshop, because we intentionally try to make it like a workshop, so it's interactive, we don't imagine that you're going to come up with all the answers. So if you want to come back and reconnect and loop around, hey, Chris, you spoke to me about this. Could you just work this out with me? Then by all means, that's exactly what we're here for. The intention is to serve or to work with you, because we understand that if it was easy, everyone would be in an amazing place. So you can obviously download part 1 of Vanessa's book. You can get us on a phone. There's our personal mobile phone numbers. Please give me a call. I do like to chat, you may have noticed. You can book yourself in or connect with us on LinkedIn, where some of our content drips into our LinkedIn channel. So either way, reach out if you want support or have any questions, or you just love to chat. Lastly, but by no means least, this is a series of webinars. So this is the first where we've set up the intention about where you want to go. The next, I've got a message in front of me. Our next webinars are all based around the ChangeFit model you've got in your workbook. Have a look, take the time, see what exciting stuff is coming up, and we're going to work through with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris. If anyone has any questions for Vanessa and Chris, please pop them in the chat box. We have had a couple of comments. This was brilliant. An enlightening and valuable webinar. Joy mentioned, the 5 whys, I should say, were an eye-opener. I thought it was fantastic. I think for me, on behalf of all that have attended today, a huge thank you, Vanessa and Chris, for sharing your insights, also your personal experiences. Vanessa, thank you, and providing some of the tools to unlock our wellbeing power. Even hearing you mention that we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, I think you mentioned, no doubt explains why there's so much noise in my head so often. I can't speak for everyone, but my workbook certainly has a lot of notes through it, and I'm certainly looking forward to taking it away to reflect and further refine my vision and my why, but most importantly, really set some of those daily rituals. Just seeing if there's any other comments here. Lots of thank yous, very motivational and enlightening. So thanks so much, guys. As Chris mentioned, this webinar has been recorded and will be uploaded on the Next Step website next week. You'll also find past recordings of webinars, including Chris's webinar from last year on how to use exercise as a recovery strategy. So once again, very aligned to many people's vision covered off today. but also keep an eye out for that module 2 coming up on the 22nd of June. Look, just checking, no more questions there. So Vanessa and Chris, thank you so much again for your time, and we really look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to connecting further with you as the year goes on.
Perfect. Thank you again. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.